Hello guys, and welcome to day 12 of this full stack hospital management system. So in our last video, we looked at user validation here, whereby we looked at how we can validate the data when the user is registering here or when the user is logging in. So in our last video, because we did on the functionality for registering a user, we used this the register schema here, where we validated the data that was to be registered to our database or to be saved in our database. Today we are going to proceed and look at registering or logging of this user, how the functionality will look like for logging the user into our application. So another thing is that we looked at the sign up functionality here. We created all this code here, whereby we looked at how the signing up for the user or registering of the user into application will look like. So this is all that we did here, and also we looked at the connection file here that we are using in order to avoid the reputation, that is database.ts, this here in our helpers, and this one here we looked at it and what it should do in order to help us to avoid on repetition. So in today's video, we are going to proceed on user signing in. Also, we'll be looking at things like get users, get all users, and also delete user, get doctors, because doctors are just users that have a lot of doctor, that is. So those are what we'll do today. And then tomorrow we just start proceeding with middlewares, and also we just start creating logic for appointment, diagnosis, and other controllers that we have. So without much ado, let's get into our tutorial. So in today's video, I just want us to start coding here so that we create the signing functionality. So we just create a function here for signing in, and we just say const sign in here, this one, and then this one will be an arrow function as usual. But here now, inside here, we require request as the way we did with our registering functionality. So we'll have request, and also we'll have the response here, which has a type of response since we are using TypeScript. So that's all there. So now another thing that we require is that we need to give this async, because there are requests that we do that are asynchronous. It won't happen immediately, it will happen in the future. So in here now, what we require from the user is the email and the password. So we just do const, and then we receive email and password from request.body, because the user will be sending this data to us in order to verify if they will just sign into application. So let us try, because we can experience some error. So just come inside here, and then what we'll do, first of all, let us validate as usual, because we validate, and to validate we just have this, because we have a value and error. If the validation fails, we'll have error, or when the validation go through, we'll have a value. So we'll have now to import this login schema, and as usual you can see it is coming from helpers here, user validation. So what we'll do, we just accept it and import it, and if you come inside here or up here, you can see we have our login schema here. So it has been imported successfully. So now inside here, now we need to validate. So we just validate here, and what we are validating is a request.body that will have email and password for us. So after that, now the other thing that we can do is now to accept the first value here should be error, and the value, if the validation go through, we'll have a value, and when the validation fails, we'll have an error. A value here is the data that you give that validation this schema, that is email and password. So that's not complex. So another thing now is to just look this user into a database. So we just get this user from our database. We call const user, and then we just do await here, and then what we'll do, we just give this user. So inside here now we need a procedure name that we use to get the user. So what we'll do, we just add sign in, because if you go into our store procedures, you can see we have that store procedure that is called sign in. So let me show you. So here we have these store procedures, and if you look here, you can see we have the sign in store procedure, and what it does is that it requires an email, and then it selects from the user where the email is equals to email and password is equals to password, that is. So what we do now, but okay, we just give this this password. Okay, you need to give this sign in password, email and password, sorry, and then it will look for that user in that database, that is, or it will just look that user in that database where the email is equals to email and password is equals to password. So now let's return here in our code. And again, the other thing that we'll have is that actually we can just leave it like that. Not it's not a must to give it an email, a password, that is. So what we'll do now, another is that now we'll go and say if here we have a user and we have a record set. So if we have this user, or if we don't have this user, so if we get the user and then we go into a record set and then look for the first value here should be the user, and we'll just say if we don't have that user, this exclamation marks here means that we don't have that value, or we don't have this user in our record set here. What we'll do now, we return a message and say, so we'll have this here as a message here, status, and then we give like 400 something of the sort for the status code, and then we just give a message, say that is saying that user is not found, just like that. So let's add it here. So that's what we are doing there. So now first of all, let us format before we continue. So after, if we don't have the user now, we can send this information, user is not found. But if we have a user, now what we'll do, we'll get the data from this user. So we have a user data here, and now this one here, and what we'll do, now we'll have this user dot record set here, and then we have the first value because it's just one user, and of course you only have a user, one user who has a unique email. So that is, now we can just say us, because we need this data, because we use it to just to sign in with a JSON-W token. I'll just show you, so don't worry, just hang in there. So we'll have an ID from our database, from our user, and also we'll have our name, which is a string. We have an email here, which is a string also, and we'll have also password, that is string. We'll have a role, which is a string also. So that's all. And then now we can come down here now, as you can see. And what we can do now, from here, first of all, let us compare the passwords. So let me come here. It is let me first of all just come down here. So now the other thing that we need to do is that we need now to compare the passwords and to get if the password match. Okay, now to do that we need to use the bycrypt. Remember the bycrypt, was hashing the password before we save it in our database in a registering function. So what we'll do, we just say by compare. So comparing, we just give it a password that we are getting from this user data, and also we'll give it user data dot password. So just like that, we now give this bycrypt to compare between the password we are getting from the user, that is this one here, and also the user data password which we are getting if the user is in our database, or we have found this user that is using the email. So now what we can do, and here I want to show you why you can't you are to type this here, this user data. So if you remove this here like this, you can see, okay, you can have that there, but it won't be very strong typed, because this user data here will not be able to identify if we have a password. And if you do something of the sort, you see there is no auto completion for you, and we want, because we are using the TypeScript, we need to give TypeScript strong typing, that is. So now if you come here again, after we remove we have restored our typing. So when we say dot, you can see we have all data that is here, because already we have told it that we contain all this data here. So we need password here. So comparing using bycrypt, now what happens is that after we have compared these two, now we have a callback function, and this callback function here can have two data. The first data is error. You can have error or the data. So here you can have error or data. So inside here you can add this call function here, and now inside here now we can continue. This means that these passwords, if these passwords are being compared, we can have data or data. So if we have a data, it means that those passwords are just the same, and you can see we are not decrypting, or we are not decrypting the password. We are not encrypting this password and then comparing. We are just giving it the plain password without encrypting, and then it is clever enough, bycrypt is clever enough to decrypt this and compare for us. So that's heavy lifting that it does for us there. So another thing is that now we can start getting the data. So we can say const, and then you can get the role, and also you can get the name and ID, and also you can get email, yeah, and then you can say get others if they are there. So this one will come from now user data, yeah, just like that. And again, after that, now we need to just get this data and sign it to user. Yeah, so we have this user, and we'll give this user this data like role. We'll have also a name, and we have an ID, and also we'll have an email, because we need this data here in order to sign in to our token, to our JSON-W token, because we need that token, and we need to store some data inside that JSON-W token. So now what we'll do inside another thing that now we need to do is to just sign in to our token. So we'll say const token, and then here we need now to do the gwt dot something, and you can see we have not installed JSON web token. So what we need to do, come here in your browser, and then you can type JSON web token. So let us see. You can see it is already here, so we can grab it here. So let's see. Now you can come here and then you can copy this here. So when you copy, just come here in your terminal. You can see we have an error, of course, because here we have not completed our function here. And also here you can see we have error, and this error is because our database is not running at this time. So we just use this one here, and now we can copy and paste it here. Can paste it here, and then let us install it, or let it install. And now we can import here, and I don't know if this here has a type JSON web token, so it just say JWT from JSON web token, just like that. As you can see, it doesn't have type. So now what we can do here, now we can use JWT and then sign, and to sign into JSON web token, now we need a data, and now we'll be using this data that is coming from user here. So we have a data. This data is user, is this one here. We just store role, name, ID, and email now. So another thing that we just need inside here, we need to store that data. And again, other thing that we need to do there is to give it a key. So we just say process.env.key. Remember, we have not built this key, and this key will give it, we'll just call it the way we want, because it is a key that will help our JSON web token. So you can give here any key. So we just call this James application, because this one of the functionality or what makes the JSON web token very secure, because you need to sign in with the token in order to get the data. So now inside here, again, we need another, or we need to just to have this, and we just say this one should be a token as, okay, we can give it a string, first of all, to type it, just like that. And now after this, now we can have another, or we can now get this one here, and the third argument here in this function of sign-in is the expiry date. So you can say expires in, and here now you can say your token expires after 30 days or 30 seconds, the way you want. So I just say 30 seconds, 30 days, that is, so that when a user is trying to sign in again with this token that it has expired, it will not be able to sign in. They will be told to sign in again and get a new token. That is, so that's a security feature of the JSON web token. So now after this, now we have sign in, and again now we can send our data so to a user if everything is okay. So we can have status, status, and then we say 200, and then we can say JSON here and have this. Yeah, now we can send two data, and we'll send user, remember this data here, and also we'll send a token here. So we'll have these two data, user and token, and user will contain role, name, ID, and email. And now we have this token here that will be used, will be stored in our, maybe in our local storage, and we'll be just checking that token in our local storage in order to know if this user has been signed in or has not signed in. So that's what happens when you're signing in. So now if else, yeah, can have an else here, else there is no data, what we need to do is that we can send a message, and we can say res.status here, and we can send a wrong password, because it means that we have a wrong password if the comparison here produces an error. So now actually this one should be something like 400 to be like unauthorized. So in here we can have a message. This message here we can say wrong password, just something like that, wrong password. Now another thing is that here we have this catch error. So inside here now we can send other things here. So we can say res.status, and we can say something like 400, and we can give a message of JSON. Okay, we can say a message of message, and we can say something like, let's say your something went wrong. That's okay. Something went wrong. You can just do anything that you feel it's okay. So here we say something went wrong, just like that. So I'm feeling like I can take a couple or a minute to just show you what happens if there's somebody who doesn't or is not understanding what happens here, and I'm believing that everybody will understand. So the first thing is actually, okay, the first thing here is that now inside here we'll require this email and password from request.body, and this will be coming from the user typing in our input and then send the email and password. When we have this one here, now the first thing that we need to do is to do the validation, because user can have typed the email that is not valid. It can be an email that doesn't have a @ sign, that is, and that is not a valid email. That is an example of validation that this Joy look at. So we have this schema here. If you remember in our last video, we built this login schema, and now to validate, we validate the email and password. So now if that email and password or the data goes well, now the other thing that we need to look at is that this user here, or this user, and actually what we can do here, or what I feel like we could have done, is to look if we have a value. So now what we can do, we can just have here and say if, no, it's not, if value. Now that's when we continue. So just let us do if value, meaning that the validation has been done correctly. We'll have else, and then we have if, and then else here. So we have this. So now we can copy or cut everything inside here. So cut this, and now we can get it here, meaning that validation has been done correctly since we have the value. If value, now we can do that. So else here, what we can do now, we can have else.status here, and again we can have this here 400. I'm not very sure what this syntax code of 400 means, but I think is a validation or an authorized type of data. So now in here we can send an error. We can say it's an error. Since here we can have an error, and again this error means it is coming from this error here. So this one will have an error, and again now we can access details in this error, something like, let's say, details, and details is an array. So we want to access the first element, and then dot message, because that's what we want, is an array that have an object. So we have a message, and now we can have it like that. So we have value now, meaning that validation is successful. Now we can just check for the user in our database. So to just look for user in our database, we just execute this sign-in procedure, or store procedure, that is, and then we give it an email. Also here, we can say if now we have that user, we can get this. If we don't have that user, that's why we are doing user.recordSet, and then we get the first element here. And if we don't have it, if maybe let's say it is an empty array, now it means that we don't have that user, and that's why we are sending this message, user is not found. Again, now we can have this after. Now let's say we have a user, that's why now we are proceeding and saying const user data. We need now to get the data from this user record set, and that's why we are typing it here, as we'll get an ID, a name, an email, a password, and a role. This one will be coming from our database, that is. So now after we get those data, or this user data, now what we need to do is to compare the password that is coming from our user and the database, and the password that is coming from our database, that is. So that's why you see this is a password that is coming from our user, and this here is a password that is coming from our database. And you can see we are not, this user data here of course is encrypted, and this password here, it is not encrypted, but Bycrypt does it for us. It encrypts this password here, and it compares for us. And if it compares, now we can have an error or data meaning that the comparison has gone through and the password are equal or they are the same. So if we have a data meaning that the data are equal, so now we can extract this information from user data. We have role, name, ID, email, and others. If we have other data, that's why we have it here. So another thing is that now we have extracted the data, and this data now we needed to assign it to a variable. That's why we have this variable called user, and we give this role, name, ID, and email. So after that, now we need to sign in we need to sign this JWT, because we need a token that will be helping us to know if the user has registered or not, because when the user registers, we need to get a token, and that token will be stored in place like local storage, and we'll be checking that to know if we can give this user access to our application and to know if this user has signed in. And now we can send that data, that is user, that contains the role, name, ID, and email, and also token. So this is an object of role, name, ID, and email, and also a token that is a string. So if we don't have that, we can now say else password is wrong, because the meaning that we have data. If we don't have data, meaning we have an error. So that's why we are sending this wrong password here. So this else here, it corresponds with this if here. If we don't have value after we have validated, so meaning that we have this error. That's why now we can access now this error dot details, and then first element and message. That's all that sign-in entails. We'll do this practically in upcoming video. So to just test and see how it will work. So hang in there. We have other things to learn today. So let us format our code. So that's all. So now we can get into other things. So we can have other logic like get all users. So we can say export just as we are doing. So export const, and then we say get user, all users, and we have async here. So async because we'll have functions or the request that will be handled in the future. So we can have the request, and here we can have this request, and also we can have response, that is response here, just like that. And again, now we can have this as arrow function. So you can see here I have done some error, so let's get it like that. Now we have corrected, and now inside here now is just to try catch, because you can have an error. So we just say try catch, and again inside here now we can get all users. So we can say const users, and we can say await, and to await we need to just execute a stop procedure. Remember, you have a stop procedure called get all users. So what we'll do now, we just say db dot exec here, and this time we are executing this get all users, just like that. And now we need to get record set, just like that. So now let us see, and you can see here it has added await for another await, and that doesn't have to worry you, it's something okay. So inside here you can look for that stop procedure. You can see get all users, and what it does is just to select all from users. So that's, I think, is understandable, you can understand easily. And now after that, what we can do now is to just send that users to whoever asked us. So we can have this 200, and then we can say JSON here, and then we can send now users, something of the sort. If not, here what we can do, we can say res dot status, and again we can give it 400, and then say JSON, and in here now we can send another message here, or we can give it an error and say something went wrong, something of the sort. So now that's okay, and that's all that we can do here in get users. Of course, if you want to add other functionality, you can do. So now the other thing we need to do is to handle a function to delete the user. So we just say export, and then const delete users. So in here, remember, we need to have an ID, and an ID we can get it from request.params. So to have that request params, you need to accept this request the request handler here, this one. And again inside here now we can get this here, we can get a generic and say ID, which is a string. So now let me show you how to use it. So inside here we can say async, and we can say request dot or request, and this is from, we can give it a request type here, and also we can have response, that is from response type. So, and again this is a function here. Now this one here is request handler, and this will help us to access the params. So the first thing that you need to do is to access these params here. So you can say const ID, and now we can say request dot body or request dot params here, and dot ID, that is because we have called it ID here, this one here. And now you can, what will this mean is that we can have a HTTP, and then we can have let's say local host, and then it is running on port, let's say 3000. So we can say API/users, and now we can give it an params here. We can say our params is an ID, and we can code this ID. This is one ID here is what we are accessing using request.params.id. We send it through this URL here. So that's all. So let us remove it. That code here was for explaining. So now the other thing we are doing is to try catch. So try catch inside here. So inside here now we can code our functionality, and the first thing that we need to do is that we need to await and then do db.exec. So we need to call the delete here, this delete user store procedure. So now we can just give it an ID, and we can confirm this delete user store procedure. So here you can look for store procedure that is called delete users, and actually you can call it delete users or user. That is because you're deleting one user, but let's give it users. In your scenario you can change, but I won't change mine, so because it will do just the same thing. So inside here now, after we have deleted the user, we can send a message. So here, and we can say 201 because we have altered our database, and we can give it a message. This message will say something like, let's say, user is deleted successfully, is deleted successfully, just like that. So the other thing is now we can look at if we have an error after try catch. If we have an error, we can say res.status, and status we can say 400, and .json, and right now we can say an error here and say something went wrong. This of course is a string, something went wrong here. So that's all there. So now we need to have our last functionality, and this one here we say export, and this one will be for getting doctors. Remember, doctors are just users that have a role of doctor. So get doctors just like that. And then what we can do, we can say async because we have a request that will be done in future. So we'll have a request here, and this request here, and then response. We can have a response here, and now again we can just give this here. So just like that, and then we can say try catch, just like that. And again, now inside here we can say const doctors, and we can say await, and await here we just say db.exec, and inside here we need to call this store procedure called get doctors here, and again we can add .record set, just like that, and we can confirm these store procedures. So in our store procedures here, you can look for get doctors or get doctors. You can see it is here. It is select from users where role is equals to doctor. So that's all that we are doing there. So now again, we can send those doctors to our user or to whoever asked us, and we have authorized that is. So we can have 200, and then you can say JSON, and in here you can just send the doctors. You can say send the doctors, just like that. And again, if we have an error, what we do inside here now, you can say res.status 400, just like that. Or yeah, you can just call it, let's give it 500 because mostly this will come from our database. This error will come from our database, and then we can give it an error saying something like something went wrong, something of the sort, because even us, we don't know what went wrong. So that's all that I wanted to cover in this video. The day 12, of course, I'm not feeling well, so I'm just struggling with creating the videos, but it's okay. I'll just be okay with time. So this is what we did today. You can go through it. Remember, I'll just include the link to the GitHub for this code in description of this video, so you can just go and check for it. And again, look where you have gone wrong if you are going wrong. And again, you can see the other things that are coming tomorrow. Is we just look for middlewares. Remember, we need middlewares in order to help us to just authorize other people and deny other people access to these functionalities, because you can't give everybody the authorization of getting all user or to delete a user. That is not correct. So that's what we'll do. We just help us, or we need to just create a middleware that will be checking our token if it is valid, and then help us to just authorize other people and then deny other people the permission to do certain things in application. So we have handled this. Now tomorrow we'll just do middleware, and also we'll just look for other things like appointment, diagnosis. We'll just continue working on this. Yeah, so that's all. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you are feeling like this content is for you, and also share videos to whoever you feel like will benefit from these videos. So without much ado, let's have this as our day 12, and I'm very happy for your support, and let's see you in another day, and have a great day or night depending on where you are.